YouTube, what is up? It's really, really good to be back. Now, today's video is really, really important because I can imagine every single one of you can relate to it. I've been obviously offering my coaching, my mentorship, my education now for many, many months. And I find one of the biggest struggles that people come to me with, and remember, I do not work with beginners. I work with traders who've maybe been 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in the markets. And that's probably typically been 2, 3, 4 years of disappointment, sort of failure, of course, a lot of failures, we all know, in those early phases. And what I found the biggest thing is when traders and struggling traders come to me, the biggest challenge we face, which we still correct and still fix, of course, but the biggest challenge is that people come to me with sort of previous conceptions of psychology, thinking, their approach to the market, the way they're basically wired in their brain around trading and expectations and how things should feel and look and see, what's an optimal setup, what's a suboptimal setup, what's a setup that's verging on becoming optimal, but we still need X, Y, Z to happen. All these intricacies. And I find actually it's the mindset these sort of struggling traders come to me with, and unpacking that and stripping it right back is one of the challengingest things I found on my end. We still get there, of course. And that's why it's so rewarding coaching struggling traders and turning them profitable. But today's video is around just taking you through some logical steps about how do we reset that wiring, how do we reset that trading psychology, and how do we then implement a strategy and mindset that is actually the right way to think about your trading and the right way to approach it from a mental side. So my first point of how things should be set up in terms of your sort of mental framework is, let's get you thinking about what successful trading actually looks like. There are very few people out there that can actually talk about this because they feel they've only been in the game 2, 3, 4 years. I've been in here now for over 10 years, so I feel I'm in a good position to talk about this. The beauty of prop firms these days, it gives you guys and people that we turn from struggling to profitable traders, it gives you guys bigger access to bigger and larger amounts of capital. And ultimately, we want every trader that comes through my door trading with huge amounts of capital and obviously making good, consistent, steady returns with a proven formula, proven edge, and so on and so on. Successful trading looks like 2, 3, 4, 5% months, give or take maximum. There will be variations. There will be bigger months, of course, 8, 9, 10%. There will be fewer months as well where it might just be 0.5%, 1%. It might be a break-even month. That's okay. I promise that's normal trading. You have to remember 99% of things you see online about flipping of accounts, 25%, 50%, 75% months, it's all nonsense. These people then don't show you what then things look like 3-4 months down the line, because typically 99% of the time they've blown their account or they've blown 90% of it in huge chunks. They're not traders, they're gamblers. So really, obviously, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% months on 6 figures of capital is life-changing for 99% of people around the world. So this is why, again, if you go back from my other videos in education, quality over quantity. I literally took a GBP USD, a cable long yesterday, and closed it out for 5%. And for me, this was at the time of filming. This is a Thursday, but that was yesterday on a Wednesday, and I said to everyone, "That's me done. That's me done for the week. I've just made 5% in a week. That's crazy, crazy, crazy amounts of return." And you've got to then allow for losses, of course, in that same month. So if I was to now finish the month 5% up, that's fantastic. And this is what you should be aspiring to: is 4, 5, 6% months where you can consistently make that month on month. You imagine making 5% on 200 grand, 5% on 500 grand. These types of sum of money now are really accessible through prop firms. That's huge amounts of capital to be taking home into your bank account each month. And the way it can then spill over on your life positively with family and friends is incredible. So my first point will just be, get your approach right around in terms of what is realistic returns and what is consistent returns. Because traders, or so-called traders out there who preach bigger percentage gains, they might make 18% in 1 month because they've not used proper risk management. They might even make more than that, but the next month they've given it all back and then some as well. And their curve just looks like this. And ultimately, because their risk management is not on point, they eventually blow their capital, whether it's in a month's time or 8 months' time. My second tip now would be around really doubling down on just a few pairs, if that. In terms of a few pairs that you trade, obviously that doesn't include the indexes you may use as confidences and all that stuff, but basically 1, 2, or 3 pairs that you trade and you stick to. Because even whether, again, if you're 3, 4 years in or you're 10, 15 years in, by the time you've got to my stage in terms of over 10 years of trading, you've got to know certain pairs incredibly well. The way they behave, the way they move, typical market cycles they go through, the way they respond to certain types of news releases, fundamentals, how they're driven from a macro perspective. There's all these factors. And if you spread your energy over 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pairs, you start coming up against sort of where you're missing things, you're making silly mistakes, but silly tiny mistakes in trading can obviously lead to losses. It doesn't matter if it's a small mistake, big mistake, it's the same outcome. So you have to be very refined, you have to be very on point. This is why I say to people, cut the noise, cut the BS, cut out all the stuff you see on social media, double down on particularly just maybe one educator that you get on with, that you respect, that has proven sort of themselves time and time again, and just keep things clear and focused, and just focus your energy on 2 or 3 pairs maximum. That way you can then know when to sit on your hands and when you need a down week because you maybe just had a fantastic week before, and capital preservation, remember, is still trading. But it's so important in terms of mindset wise, you keep things clear, focus, simple. I promise I lead an incredibly simplistic life, and I do that for a reason. I've set that up for a particular reason, because when there's lots of stress going on, when there's lots of noise going on, you've all been there when you've still tried to trade during stressful personal times, lifetimes, and it actually massively affects your trading performance. You're not 100% on, you're not 100% disciplined, whatever. There's always something off. To keep things simplistic, double down on a few pairs, quality over quantity in terms of mindset and position sizing and risk management, of course, and really just double down on those couple, 2, 3 optimal setups on optimal pairs that you know really well. The third and final point, guys, to see off this video is really approaching a very adaptable mindset, a very patient mindset. The reason I say this is because obviously the market is forever changing. You may be looking at one potential setup and it may be turning into an optimal setup. You might just be waiting on a few bits and pieces to formulate before you then execute and pull the trigger. But market's forever changing, and you need to be adaptable to that. You cannot marry one particular bias. Let's just say again, let's keep the same example as GBP USD. Let's say you're shaping up to taking a long position, and then all of a sudden there is a change in price, there's a change in structure on some of the higher time frames, obviously, which give us true confidence, that things will potentially change trend. You need to really drop any ego you have, if you do have one. You need to be incredibly adaptable and think, okay, the setup I had planned for and I had worked my risk out for and I had worked out my take profit targets and stop loss levels and all of that work that you've done just before executing that trade, you then need to just say, you know what, that setup is now not playing out, it's now not optimal, I'm not going to execute. Or let's say you're in a trade, even more importantly, you're in that trade, and then you see a change of price that is insinuating that it's going to then turn against you. You really need to be really adaptable, drop the ego and say, you know what, this setup was potentially playing out well, and it's maybe done 10% of its move, 20% of its move, but then it started to go against you. You need to learn to drop that. You need to learn to either take partials and cut the trade out early, or make sure that you are cutting losses as soon as possible. Now, if you look on other videos as well, your stop loss should always be placed in an area where if it does get hit, then it means there's going to be a change in structure and a change against price against you anyway. But you see what I mean? Too many people are in setups, and because it's in profit, even when they see a change in price and change in structure, insinuating it's going to go against them, they still hold it. They still hold tight to that bias. And actually, if you just took partial sometimes and then reassess the situation, you might find then you can actually trade it the other way, as long as there's enough confidence there and there's a good enough optimal setup there. And so when people don't listen to that or don't sort of drop that ego, you're not only either going to take a loss, but secondly, you're then going to miss out on a potential opportunity where prices actually showed you something else is going to happen, and you've then missed potentially a 2%, 3% trade. And so you're leaving, you're leaving profit on the table, potential profit on the table. So just come into trading with a nice, simple, clear mindset, being very adaptable to that things may change in a split instance, and that's okay. It's the markets. They're going to do what they want to do. So at the end of the day, successful traders like ourselves, we are just fantastic risk managers. That's all we are. We don't always make the right decision, of course. We always incur losses, but our risk management, we always do make the right decisions. And that's what gives us profitability. Plus an edge, of course, plus a strategy that's proven over many years, but you get the picture. So guys, I hope that helps. Obviously, I want to keep these videos as concise as I can. I know I do ramble sometimes, but I want you guys to take as much sort of advice and much education from this as possible and try and implement into your trading straight away. Of course, if you want any mentorship, you want any guidance, you want to join the community where I drop multiple videos a week for analysis and what I'm looking at, link is in the bio. But as always, guys, I'll see you on the next one. And the next video, I promise, will be a lot sooner than 3 weeks' time. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.